Hello and welcome. What are the most significant things that have happened in the Indian IT space in the last year, and more importantly, going forward for the next couple of years? I'm joined by Rostow Ravanan, CEO of Mindtree, to help me answer those questions. Rostow, thank you very much for speaking with us. So before I ask you about the future and the prognosis, so tell us a little bit about what are the changes that have happened which tell us, and you in some ways, about what or how India is poised to take advantage of the big changes that are happening in the AI and the robotics and the machine learning space.
I think the big changes that are happening are around talent, because all of these advanced technologies require a completely different mindset and completely different skills to be able to make a difference in those new areas. India clearly has the best advantage in terms of the youngest talent, all of whom are digital natives. For example, a 22-year-old kid who's graduating out of an engineering college today has never made a phone call on a rotary dial telephone like you and I have made in the early parts of our career. Correct. So they are completely born digital, and therefore their ability to understand, absorb, relate to, and therefore implement that in the context of an enterprise need is way, way higher. So that I think is a big advantage for India in terms of just that sheer demographics, that passion, and that connect to new technologies there. Secondly, I think India will also explode as being a market for some of these things, and that's another reason why I think some of these new technologies will find deployment in India. If you look at, say, an area like payments, the amount of innovation that's happened in India is way ahead of even many of the Western markets. So you're going to come into our own even as a market, and both of these should lend to sort of a huge explosion of opportunities for technology providers like us, as well as for talent in this market as well.
So give us an example of how you are able to use both of these or have used in a project that you've been working with.
Absolutely. So one of our customers in the US was sitting on data that touches about 2 million people. About 2 million people who either bought to or sold from, bought from or sold to this organization. They had no clue what to do with that data. So they called a bunch of our campus graduates, which we train in Mindtree Kalinga in Bhubaneswar, and on a Friday evening they explained the problem. They said, I have all this data and this is what I have. These are the touch points that I've had, and so on and so forth. Now you come back and tell me what I can use the data with. So we created a data jam, like a music jam. We created a data jam. The kids worked on Saturday and Sunday, and Monday morning when they presented to this customer kind of representative who was with us over the weekend, she was completely blown away with the kind of possibilities that our kids threw back at her, saying that you can use it like this, you can use it like that, you can take this from here and add that to something coming from there, and therefore make this sense out of it, etc. A whole range of possibilities that never could have been imagined came together. Part of it is, like I said, just the sheer smartness and the digitalness of the talent that we have. But a part of it is also technology. They were able to actually use scripts that are available in open source or from components from third party, etc., and actually build prototypes over a weekend and be able to show. So you're not just talking with a PowerPoint slide, but you are presenting to the customer with working code.
So you're saying that a lot of our youth are self-adaptive in this exciting new space? Because that wouldn't be the intuitive
no, I think that personally for me, based on my experience talking to our campus graduates plus our own customers, etc., I am 100% convinced that that's an enormous amount of opportunity for us. The other reason why I think it's a big advantage is when I talk to my customer, for example, somebody who's in an airline or somebody who's in the hospitality industry. If you remember, Govindraj, in our generation, when we were kids, we never flew business class. We probably would have never flown at all. We never probably stayed in a 5-star hotel because our parents could never afford that. But the upcoming graduating batches of, say, the next 3 or 4 years come from a socio-economic background where many of them probably have gone abroad on a vacation, probably even traveled business class, stayed in a 5-star hotel, etc. So that is the population that our customers are reaching out to. So they are actually able to relate to solutions because they themselves are consumers. Whereas in my generation, when I entered the Indian IT industry in the 1990s,
you're building something for someone who you have no comprehension.
We were only living it vicariously. We thought, okay, somebody who wants wants to rent a car out of an airport in the US will think of like this and will want this, etc. We live that vicariously, but this generation are actually consumers for those products and services of our customers themselves, so they can relate to it in a much more intuitive but much more user and usage based way. So that I think is another big advantage for us. And thirdly, I think which is the other big advantage that I see is that generation actually is maybe leverages the power of laziness, because our generation, in all honesty, was a hard-working, high work ethic kind of a thing. So we all threw a lot of effort at problems. But that generation just comes from a different mindset, saying, let me find the fastest path to the solution. And therefore, they are just naturally wired by doing it with more technology-enabled ways rather than a very effort or human effort-based ways. So that I think also makes them more capable of solving the problems using technologies like AI, using technologies like automation, etc. Than our generation just never comprehended those things. We thought coming to office on Monday morning, working late every day, and working on weekends, etc. was a great thing. That generation does not want to do.
Right. So I'm going to ask you about prognosis in a bit. But how do you see companies like yours in this period? Are you going to grow in the numbers? Are you going to shrink? How is it going to be the world in the uncertain world of the next couple of years?
I think we will continue to grow. If you look at last year, for example, we grew faster than the industry. We grew about 9.5% in March 2007.
No, I mean in number of people.
Oh, number of people. Absolutely. So even in people terms as well, this year, for example, we will add people. So
because the growth, I think, is a given in some ways.
Correct. So the revenue growth will obviously be there. People growth will obviously be there, because at the end of the day, we still need people to deliver those solutions, to interact with the customer, etc. So we'll definitely have both strong revenue growth and people growth. But what will end up happening is the two will get decoupled. So if my revenue grows at X, my headcount growth will probably grow at 0.8X or something like that. So it will not be directly linear like it has been over the first two waves of the Indian IT industry. It will get decoupled. But the challenge will be for those who are in the middle management and senior management roles, because the pressure to reskill for them is so high. And it's unfortunately at a time when, for example, probably they are married, kids are in school, EMI on the house, all of those sort of social pressures exist there, and they are very, very scared they are getting irrelevant. They need to go touch back to sort of technology, make more sense.
And that's a challenge for you personally as well, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Exactly.
So how are you reskilling yourself?
Oh, I am reskilling myself continuously. So I'm doing 3 or 4 things. One is I have a team within my office that I call my knowledge supply chain. So they curate articles, my CTO, my chief of staff, etc. curate articles, come back and tell you, okay, read this, read that, watch this show, go to this blog. So that's part of my learning journey. The second part of learning journey is I'm committing myself to physical learning. For example, last year I signed up to the US University to learn on artificial intelligence, etc. So I'm going back and sitting in class, or going to an online tutorial and learning. So the second part. The third part, in our industry, the best source of learning is by being in front of customers and being in front of your young talent. So the amount of time I spend with our kids at Mindtree and the amount of time I spend with customers, especially those who are pushing the boundaries of technology, is the third big source of learning for me. Because today, if I can't go add value, I can get a meeting with a CTO or a CIO or a CEO, etc. But unless I prepare myself to engage in the conversation, I know I will not get the second meeting. So I force myself to learn about that person, learn about their business, learn about what's likely to be of interest to them. And that's how I stay on top of it. But it's a treadmill. Both the speed and the incline of the treadmill is continuously increasing. So I'll have to stay on it till my knees give way.
Right. Okay. So, but before your knees give way, so how is it looking for the next year or two? What are your sort of key prognosis points?
I think there'll be an enormous amount of growth for us, specifically to Mindtree, and then I'll probably touch a little bit about the larger industry view as well. Specifically about Mindtree first, I think we'll have a high growth period, significantly more growth over the next 2 or 3 years compared to the last 2 or 3 years, on the basis of 2 fundamental shifts. One is digital has become industrial scale now. What started off 3-4 years back as a $500,000 or $1 million kind of a proof of concept in one department or one geography for one brand, etc., now is becoming pan organization. and people like us who invested in building the relationships, building those initial successes for the customers, are extremely well placed now to take it on a much larger scale. So today we are seeing both in terms of breadth and also in depth, projects that not just touch the front end but also go all the way to the back end of the organization, all of which are leading to a big growth opportunity for us. Secondly, over 2016 and parts of 2017, what we got hurt was a few of our customers who had like internal business challenges. One, for example, got a hostile takeover threat, and therefore many of their priorities got changed, etc. All of those headwinds are sort of abating now. So I'm no longer having to get incremental revenue to fill a hole. So my base is sort of becoming stable. So whatever we are winning, we are able to obviously get growth there. And if you look at the last 5 or 6 quarters, every quarter we've had like multiple, almost like $200 million each quarter worth of contract signings. That should also help us get growth for the next 2 or 3 years.
Right. Rostow, what's the one exciting, fun thing that you're looking forward to in the sort of tech AI space that could perhaps surprise all of us?
The one exciting thing that I'm looking forward to, frankly, is autonomous driving.
Okay.
Because I come from Bangalore, like you know, and I spend at least maybe over 2-3 hours a day in traffic, etc. So somebody can take that time away and make it more productive for me, and obviously all the associated safety and everything else put together. So that I think is the one exciting thing I'm looking forward to.
That's a good one to have on the wish list. So thank you very much for speaking with us.
Great, thank you.